Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle, and I'm joined by Ryan McGinley. Ryan, it seems a while since we've been on together, but the football's returned.
Football's back, the proper football's back. Delighted to be here just in Glasgow, outside about 10-15 minutes away from Celtic Park. Looking forward to the game this afternoon. Yeah, as you said, it's the return of football, return of Celtic. Celtic have got a title to go and win. Hopefully they can do that in the next few weeks. They're up against Hearts. It's wild conditions this afternoon. Perfect conditions for a game of football, I would say. Celtic versus Hearts at Celtic Park. You can't really beat it. Apart from a Glasgow derby, this is the next best thing for me.
Excellent. And first things first, a word from our sponsors, and we say thank you to S1 Jobs, who sponsor the Celtic Way podcast and daily briefings. And if it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. They've got plenty of jobs in Glasgow and the surrounding areas. So we say once again, thank you to S1 Jobs for their sponsorship of the Celtic Way podcasts. Ryan, have you seen the team? Couple of there it is. There's a graphic. Do you want to read out the team for those who are watching? You do the honours, yep, indeed.
Yep. So it is Viljami Sinisalo's league debut for Celtic. He starts in goals in place of the injured Kasper Schmeichel. We've got a back four of Alistair Johnson, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Mike Nawrowski keeps his place, and Jeffrey Schlupp. Callum McGregor returns in the middle of the park alongside Arne Engels and Rio Hatate. Up front is Dyson Maeda, supported on the left by Jota, and on the right, Nicholas Kuhn. Have you got the subs, Tony?
I have indeed. The subs are Bain, Taylor, Trusty, Ida, Yang, McCowan, Bernardo, Forrest, and Ralston. Nice to see Paulo Bernardo and James Forrest in the substitutes bench there as well, Ryan. So, yes, Celtic versus Hearts today. Ryan, we are hoping that Celtic, they're 4 wins away from wrapping up the title. Let's make it 3 wins by the close of play today, Ryan, regardless of anything else happening elsewhere.
It's those words again, Tony. It's scoreboard pressure. Rangers play later on this evening at Dens Park against Dundee. If Dundee play anywhere near the way that they played against Celtic, then that'll be a difficult game. But it's all about Celtic putting their A game on today, bouncing back. You know, they've had a couple of weeks, just under 2 weeks since that Glasgow derby defeat to Rangers. I hope they've been mulling over it. There was some interesting comments from Brendan Rodgers yesterday that result has lingered with him more than any other result has, certainly as Celtic manager. That's what I like to hear. I like to hear my manager being annoyed about a result. They should be annoyed given the way that they lost that game, the way they started it and the way they finished it in particular. Today's a chance to make amends, not so much with the Glasgow derby, but in terms of the league, getting back to where they need to be, 16 points clear. Put that pressure on Rangers and let's see how they respond away from home against Dundee. Good team. I like the changes that have been made. I like that Callum McGregor's back in the team. He's the heartbeat. Doesn't matter if he's maybe advancing in years. His importance to this team is still it's massive for Celtic. And I'm delighted to see that Mike Nawrowski's kept his place, even though I was probably calling for Austin Trusty to come back into the side. I'm glad that Mike Nawrowski has been rewarded for his performance against Rangers because he was one of the few bright spots in what was otherwise a really poor performance by the team as a whole. But yeah, delighted. Looking forward to the game today. And hopefully the weather picks up just ever so slightly and Celtic put on a bit of a show this afternoon.
Lots of eyes going to be on Viljami Sinisalo, Ryan. His first start, as you say, this season, league start. And the manager spoke highly of him. Said he had a great pre-season. And he had no qualms about throwing him in. So big test for him today, but one you hope that he can come through with flying colours.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing him. The only other glimpse we've seen of him, apart from pre-season, was against Raith Rovers in the Scottish Cup. So a real chance to see him put under a bit of pressure. I think he'll be up against Shankland and the likes today. So you'd expect him to make a couple of saves. Hearts will look to bring their A-game. They'll look to bring a wee bit of an offensive threat, particularly on the counter-attack. They're a good side. They have really upped their game under Neil Critchley. Had a few ups and downs since he joined, but the players that they've brought in particular in January have really helped them because they've used that Jamestown analytics that Brighton use to bring in players that were needed for their system. That's clearly worked out for them and they're doing well and they're rising up that table. A couple of adverse results here and there, but on the whole, they have improved from where they were at the start of the season, or the middle of the season rather. good team, but Celtic, you've got to say, if Celtic are in the mood this afternoon, and I expect them to be because they've had 2 weeks to think about that result against Rangers, then I think they're going to put on a show today for the supporters in attendance. It's going to be a busy one. I think there'll be 60,000 fans there. The Hearts fans will look to make some noise as well in the away section. But if Celtic play to the best of their abilities this afternoon, I don't see Hearts laying a glove on them this afternoon.
I got the feeling you mentioned Brendan Rodgers' comment about that defeat lingering with them more than any other result. You get the feeling that Celtic will come out the traps pretty quickly today and feel that they do owe the fans a performance and a display after the derby result. But also, you mentioned too, Mike Nawrocki. I'm quite happy that Mike Nawrocki's there. That I think that's a decent award for Mike Nawrocki for his performance in the Glasgow derby. He now has a chance to be part of a big thing for Celtic come the end of the season. If he can cement his place for the next few games, he could be part of the team that feels part of a real part of the team that wins the treble, Ryan. Hopefully the treble, and he'll play in some important games.
Yeah, it's a bit of a. I'm not going to say it's a surprise to see him because he's a first team player. He's in and around the squad. Brendan Rodgers has said he's been training tremendously well. It's just he's not really had that opportunity in the team. I remember last season he was kind of out of the picture as well, alongside Gustav Lagerbielke, but he stayed at the club, whereas Lagerbielke stayed as well, but he left for FC20 in the summer on loan. So it's good to see him getting these appearances, because I think that'll be important to him if he can keep these appearances going from now until the end of the season. I don't know exactly how many appearances you need to win a league winners medal, but he'll be looking at that as an objective. He'll want to be part of that. He'll want some silverware of his own, but also he'll want to resurrect his Celtic career. He's still quite a young defender. He's still learning his way. I think he's 23, 24 years old. Celtic signed him really young. So it's not the most surprising thing to see this resurrection of a Celtic career, but it is surprising at the same time, given where he's been. The fact that Trusty, Scales and Carter Vickers have been those three players that have alternated those two spots for Celtic. So I'm really glad to see that he's been that he's found his way into the team, and hopefully he can top it off with maybe even a goal this afternoon. He's in there down to merit. It's not because there's injuries. Trusty could easily be back in that starting lineup. He's there on merit, and here's hoping that he can cement his place and really give Brendan Rodgers some food for thought in that position, because that's the best possible thing. Competition's the best, but having somebody come out of the blue and put in good performances. Sometimes training can be different from actual games. Maybe a player might not catch your eye in training, but they bring it to a game. They bring it to a real game environment, and they really thrive in that occasion. That's what I'm hoping that Mike Nawrocki does today.
Yeah, I believe it's 10 games for a medal, Ryan. I could be wrong on that, I could be corrected, but I think it's 10 games you need to get a medal commissioned for you. So hopefully he achieves that target between now and the end of the season. But also as well, Ryan, Nicholas Kuhn has kind of gone off the boil. I'm hoping that the break has done him the world of good. He's obviously in the starting lineup today. So I'm expecting Nicholas Kuhn to you're talking about resurrect. He's not necessarily having, but just resurrect that form that he showed earlier in the season, Ryan. I want him to do that. Big game for Nicholas Kuhn today, I think.
It is. It's a big game for a few players this afternoon, given the way that some of them played against Rangers last time out, but none more so than Nicholas Kuhn. He was hooked at half-time. That'll be difficult for a player that was the main man for much of the season. Think about those moments against Bayern Munich, against RB Leipzig, all these different moments, especially in the Champions League, some really big games domestically as well. So to get hooked at half-time in a really important game against Rangers at home at Celtic Park must have been quite demoralising for a player like him, who's had a good season up to this point. His numbers don't lie, but he has had a dip in form, specifically since Jota arrived at the club. I think he's only got 2 goals and 2 assists since Jota arrived at the club. Now, that doesn't sound nightmarish, but if you look at it compared to his stats before, he was maybe getting that in every 2 games. He was getting 4 goal contributions, so he has slowed down. Maybe he couldn't sustain that form from now until the end of the season for the whole season, but I want to see him get back to his best. It's the performance. It doesn't matter for me about the goals and the assists. I want to see a guy that's visibly troubling his marker on the left-hand side. If he can do that, then Celtic will be well on their way this afternoon, because you've got Jota on one wing, you've got Kuhn on the other, and you've got Maeda through the middle. That's a trinity that can hurt any defence. So I'm hoping that if they're all firing, if they're firing on all cylinders this afternoon, then it could be a tough afternoon for Hearts, or that's what you would hope anyway.
Speaking of Dyson Maeda, the manager said that they're hopeful of tying him up on a longer term deal, Ryan, because he deserves it.
Yep.
I don't think any Celtic supporter would judge Dyson Maeda a new bumper or improved deal. They just love him, don't they? And he has brought something special to the party this season.
I've got a funny feeling that's quite far down the line, Tony. I think the way that Brendan Rodgers was speaking about it yesterday, he was very open about the fact that he's had some intervention from Dermot Desmond on that one as well. It's clear that his importance has been relayed to the player, which is brilliant. He is, and I think the most telling comment, there was two comments that really struck me yesterday. The one about lingering, that result lingering in Brendan Rodgers, and also Dyson Maeda deserves more money. He came out and said he deserves more money for what he brings to the team. If that's the case, then it should be a simple negotiation between player and club, given what he deserves, given that amount that he deserves per week, and I think that will get signed. But the way that Brendan Rodgers was so open talking about it, the fact that it's broke and multiple media outlets, I think that one's pretty far down the line. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear about a new contract before the end of the season. That's just my assumption and my hunch.
You think it's a case of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, Ryan, from what the manager said yesterday?
Yeah, I just see a guy that's really, really settled in Scotland as well. I spoke during the week to Hamish about the fact that Dyson Maeda speaks about how settled his children are in Scotland in particular. They've found a home. He actually came out and said in an interview, I don't know if it was about a year ago or so, he said that his daughter has a Scottish accent already. So that shows just how well they've assimilated into the Scottish culture and everything about it. He's a popular guy, well, to half of the city anyway, you would say. Half of the city absolutely adore him. The other half are terrified by him. That's just the way that Dyson Maeda is. I hope that he can sign that new deal. And really, he's been a poster boy for this second period under Brendan Rodgers. He's understood that he's needed to adapt his game and maybe lose a lot of the rashness that's been in his game, but he's done that and then some. Look at the numbers now. You know, he's now a potent threat in front of goal, and long may that continue. I think he's the most improved player under Brendan Rodgers now. I don't know what you think, but I think he's improved tenfold from what he was under Ange Postecoglou. And he was an effective player under Ange, but now he's just such a dangerous weapon on both ends of the pitch.
I just love the fact that Brendan Rodgers said he doesn't give too much away, except tell everybody that he's very happy. So that was a cracking line, because whenever he gets interviewed, he always says that, doesn't he? And you kind of notice, but you can see that as well, and it kind of that warmth, that personality it has shines through. But yeah, delighted if that happens with Maeda. I think every Celtic supporter is willing that to happen, and I think you could be right with your hunch on that. I think it is pretty advanced and far down the line, reading between the lines with the manager's comments, and that could be something that will be addressed maybe next week or in the coming weeks, certainly. Now, you mentioned as well, the captain is back, Ryan. A welcome addition back to the Celtic side. Celtic supporters, it kind of drew polar ends of the spectrum, didn't it? That they said, did they miss him in the derby? A lot of people said yes. Others said no, and they were citing the 3-0 game at Ibrox in January, stuff like that. But I'll put my cards on the table. I thought Celtic missed Callum McGregor desperately in the derby. I have to say that.
There was a Callum McGregor shaped hole in Celtic's midfield 2 weeks, just under 2 weeks ago. He's a captain. He's monumental to the team. He starts everything. Although I don't think he's had his greatest season, admittedly, as a Celtic player. Granted, he's had a better goal scoring season. I don't think in terms of form he's been quite at his best. But you need him in derby games, especially in big derby games against Rangers at home. So the fact that he's back for a game against Hearts, you could count with two hands, maybe even more, of how many good games he's had against Hearts over the years. It was actually funny that you say that. It was actually his game against Hearts under Brendan Rodgers in his first spell. I remember Scott Brown being injured, and Callum McGregor really took on that leadership role. Can't remember exactly who was captain on that day, but I remember that Scott Brown was injured, and Callum McGregor absolutely bossed that game from start to finish. I think it was 2016 or 2017, but it was really a showcase on what was to come for Callum McGregor in his legendary Celtic career. You've got to remember, although it was Ronnie Dyler that brought him into the side, it was Brendan Rodgers, like with James Forrest and Scott Brown to an extent, that really elongated and prolonged his Celtic career and has turned him into that Celtic legend. Now he's back, and I'm glad to see him back and fit and ready. And I'm hoping for another good performance today, maybe even a goal to add to that as well. Because he's been pretty deadly from outside the box, but he's been getting closer to the goal as well. Some goals from inside the box now. It's nice that he's shown that a bit of versatility. It doesn't really matter who scores today. I just want Celtic to get back to winning ways.
Yeah. Guys, get your predictions coming in. I'll try and read a few of them out before we end the stream. I'll start with yourself, Ryan. If you'll give me your prediction, what's your thoughts on today? You did say Celtic would win, but our hearts would struggle to lay a glove on them. So how does that manifest itself in your mind as a scoreline?
As much as I was confident going into the last game against Rangers, it really does sort of temper your expectations going into the next one. But I do expect Celtic to give a response today. I think it will be... I'm between 3-1 and 4-1 on this, because I think that Celtic will score goals, but I think that Hearts will also score a goal, because I think they've got a lot of threat, particularly in the counter-attack. They'll look to bring their A-game. They'll look to try and get something from the game. But I think that Celtic have got too much, especially in attack. And I was looking at Daizen Maeda's stats. Apart from the Dundee United game, where he came on as a sub, he's either scored or assisted, and he's an X amount of games. I can't remember exactly the number, but he's been scoring or assisting in every game, and I can't see that changing today. I can see him getting a couple, maybe even getting an assist as well. It seems to be the Maeda show. He had that injury, he shaked it off. I just think there's goals in this team for Celtic today. I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet. I think that Celtic will win it comfortably.
Fair enough. I think that too, Ryan. I'll say 3-0 to Celtic, and we'll just get time for some predictions here coming in fast and furious. I'll read a few of them out. Danny Boy says 2-1 to Celtic. Celt88 says 2-1 to Celtic. Tommy55 saying 3-1 Celtic. Stephen Johnson saying 4-1. John Milan saying 2-1 to the boys. Parkhead Boy saying 2-1 as well. Lots of 2-1s, Ryan. Big Rab being his 4-0. Navrosky header, he's saying he's even picking a goal scorer. Jim Dolan saying 3-1 Celtic. Eileen Feeks, regular contributor. Hi, Eileen, how you doing? 2-1, she's saying. Tony Clark agreeing with myself, 3-0. Green Lighty saying 2 or 3-1. And Steve Kelly agreeing with myself, he's saying 3-0. So there you go, Ryan. Most people picking a Celtic win, which is what you would expect, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's hoping that Celtic can play better than what the weather is just now, because the weather is pretty terrible this afternoon. Although I would caveat that by saying that these are the perfect conditions for football. You think of Celtic Hearts, what would be the ideal condition that you would want the two teams to be playing in? Maybe a wee bit of rain, a wee bit of moisture on the pitch, tackles flying in. You want to see that blood and thunder on the pitch and off the pitch as well. I look forward to these games. I look forward to Celtic Rangers games, but also look forward to the likes of Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen. These are the games that make up the fixture list for me. Look forward to these every time they come around. And you know that Hearts will bring a bit of noise with them too. Here's hoping that they can be quiet by the end of proceedings this afternoon. Hopefully Celtic can make them quiet.
Martin Nisbet saying 5-0 to Celtic, Ryan. Take that all day long. Guys, it's always result dependent. Whatever you're doing, enjoy the game. Myself and Ryan will reconvene after the game, and look out on the website for my instant analysis, Ryan's man-by-man player ratings, and there'll be Q&As and stuff from the managers and players or the protagonists who speak afterwards. We shall see you soon, and here's hoping Celtic can take another step towards wrapping up the title. Ryan, I'll let you go and enjoy it, sir.
Thank you very much. Hopefully we can all get the result that Celtic need this afternoon.